With everything you have on your plate, earning your degree online seems impossible. But at Grand Canyon University, we specialize in helping you fit a master's degree in education into your busy day. Your graduation team, led by your own GCU counselor, provides you with the personal support you need to succeed. Achieve your goals with a plan and team behind you. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Visit gcu.edu.
This is The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
They're running a strange program, y'all.
Now, here's Frank Morano.
Good morrow, everyone. This is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. I have always been a fan of, not always, but I have mostly been a fan of Paris Hilton. Now, I'm not a fan of Paris Hilton the way that I am of William Shatner or Steve Martin or Mel Brooks. I can't say that I've followed everything that she's ever done. And a lot of the things that she's involved in, it's quite honestly, it's just stuff that I'm not interested in. She was involved in this reality show that I never saw. She does, I think, clothing and product lines that that's not really of interest to me. But as a musician, I think she's done some interesting things. And as a personality, I think she's done some interesting things. But I must say, my fondness for her has grown exponentially over these last few years because she has become more vocal about a real problem in this country, which is abuse in America's foster care system. So she was in Congress yesterday. She was on Capitol Hill yesterday testifying before the House Ways and Means Committee that was having a hearing. And she was talking about how we need to reform for the foster care system and these programs where this for-profit industry of tough love for kids. And she recounted how she was ripped from her bed in the middle of the night at 16 and transported to the first of 4 such facilities. These facilities that are playing fast and loose with the law. Here's a little bit of Paris Hilton on Capitol Hill yesterday.
When I was 16 years old, I was ripped from my bed in the middle of the night and transported across state lines to the first of 4 youth residential treatment facilities. These programs promised healing, growth, and support, but instead did not allow me to speak, move freely, or even look out a window for 2 years. I was force-fed medications and sexually abused by the staff. I was violently restrained and dragged down hallways, stripped naked, and thrown into solitary confinement. My parents were completely deceived, lied to, and manipulated by this for-profit industry about the inhumane treatment I was experiencing.
So, I mean, this is where celebrities can be really meaningful. Everyone always says, oh, why don't, not everyone, but a lot of people always say, oh, why don't celebrities just stay in their lane? Why don't they just shut up and sing, shut up and dribble, shut up and act? Here is an example, similar to what George Clooney was doing with Darfur a few years ago. But here's an example of an issue that I think would be almost totally ignored by the press and the public if it wasn't a huge celebrity, along the magnitude of a Paris Hilton bringing attention to this. She was, I guess, like a lot of teenagers, a misbehaving child. And her parents wanted to straighten her out. So they sent her to one of these for-profit youth care, whatever they call it, facilities. And she was abused in every sense of the word. And I don't think she's making this up. I don't see what she would have to gain by making this up. I believe every word she said. And I think this is absolutely something that needs to be reined in. Now, she has joined this bipartisan group of lawmakers pushing for something called the Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act. Here's Paris Hilton.
This $23 billion a year industry sees this population as dollar signs and operates without meaningful oversight. It costs approximately $800 to $1,000 per day to place a foster youth in a facility, significantly more expensive than serving them in their own communities. What is more important, protecting business profits or protecting foster youth lives?
So she's been, like I said, she's been vocal on this the last few years. In 2021, she advocated for legislation aimed at establishing a Bill of Rights for teenagers in congregate care facilities. And now she is trying to bring about some reform of the foster care system. And she said, look, if you're a child in the system, hear my words. I see you. I believe you. I know what you're going through, and I'm not giving up on you. You're important. Your future is important, and you deserve every opportunity to be safe and supported. And she said, look, I am here to be the voice for children who currently don't have one. And for children who do end up in foster care, we can't allow them to grow up in cold facilities that act like kid prisons. I think this is horrible that this is going on. But I think it's great that she's speaking out about this and bringing some attention to this. And, there were some lighthearted moments as well. Claudia Tenney, who's a Republican congresswoman from New York, who I actually know, who's a nice lady. Paris Hilton complimented her blazer, which featured a glittery checkered pattern. And, I know Claudia. And she's not exactly a fashion plate generally. Great woman, but she's not someone that you would think of as getting attention for her wardrobe. And one of the congressmen, Republican Mike Carey of Ohio, Paris Hilton wished his mother a happy birthday, which was kind of fun. So I think this is really such an important thing. And it's something that I have heard about. It's something that I had no idea was so prevalent, but it is. There's all sorts of abuse in the foster care program, and you get the sense that there's a need for the strengthening of certain child welfare regulations and protecting children. I'm curious if, and unfortunately, the states have failed to track abuses in foster care facilities and in other child care facilities that are housing thousands of children. And so I'm glad she's out there speaking out on this. Good for her. I'd love to know if in your experience, you've ever experienced anything like this. Maybe you were the child, as Paris Hilton was, and your parents were trying to straighten you out, and they send you one of these programs, and maybe you had a good experience. Maybe you had a not so good experience. Or maybe you're a parent and you wanted to give your child, you tried everything and you were at your wit's end. You wanted to straighten out your child and you didn't know what else to do. But it was a last resort, I guess. How did it work out? 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Meantime, Zach is in Brooklyn. Hello, Zach.
Hey. Well, all right. I'm sorry. First thing, I think Matt Blaze deserves another weekend of bumper selections because he's pretty on point there.
Okay, maybe we'll do that.
But I want to talk about the interview with Albert, which I thought was great, and nice segue into that too.
Thank you.
Well, to just comment real quick, yeah. But on the Paris thing, I had friends who actually quite a few that lived in my town growing up, who were all in the foster care system, who were at this one woman's pretty big home where she, used the home as a foster care center. But it was more intimate. And, definitely noticed that they didn't get the luxuries that most people would be accustomed to and hope for, but they weren't mistreated. This isn't speaking on the broad scale of it. I mean, and as a 14, 15-year-old, we could see how they absolutely could have had a better, situation. But they made the best of it, and we were good friends. It was weird though, because you only saw them for like 2 years, and then they disappeared somewhere else. But on that note, I mean, well, good for Paris, because there's absolutely, that's a huge issue. But I wanted to say on the creativity thing that I 100% agree with Mr. Albert, if that was his name, Albert, right?
Yeah, Albert Reed, but I kept calling him Albert Red.
Okay, Albert Reed, got it. Definitely look at that book up. But I 100%, my whole person, it's something that has grown on me. The idea of imagination is something that is practiced in solitude, in isolation, alone. But then your creativity is performed, for lack of better words, in the public sphere. Like it's like you were saying, like you become to like you default to a group mentality, which is not a bad thing, but it becomes a group idea, as opposed to a completely individual, creative thought that could be bad, could be terrible, could be okay, or could then need slight critiquing from a group to then progress into something, wonderful. But I definitely think creativity is something that is practiced in private and performed in the public sphere.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with a group idea, for instance? I mean,
no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but if a cure for cancer is developed by an individual or a group, isn't cancer still cured? Isn't that a good thing?
Absolutely, yeah. But I would argue that in the group, I don't think the idea, let's say, found its roots in the group. It probably got refined in the group. But somebody went home. Okay, let me put it this way, if I can, really quick, like a completely different ballpark area, but like love. I mean, between two people, like, isn't it so much more beautiful when you are apart from your partner and come back to tell them about something that you thought separate from them about them, or like you saw, I don't know, something in the store and not with them, and then you bought it and brought it to them. Like how much more special is that, as opposed to you're out together and then you whatever, buy that rose that she was looking at while you're with her. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No. I get exactly what you mean, Zach. Well said on all. I appreciate the feedback and the call. I hope you call again.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that. 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222 if you want to comment. And then if you want to find us on Facebook, you could certainly do so at facebook.com/Morano fan. That's where we post a lot of the articles that I hope are interesting. But, we post a lot of the articles that we end up talking about on the program. And I think it's a great place to connect with other listeners of the show as well. Joaquin is in Pennsylvania, a state that, by the way, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now on the ballot in. So congratulations to Pennsylvania.
Congratulations to Mr. Kennedy. And also happy birthday to Matt Blaze.
Absolutely. Amen.
You know what? I'm intrigued by this Paris Hilton story. And I'm really shocked that for everything that was done to her, that people can't be held criminally responsible for it. And, as a truck driver, I listened to talk radio for 40 years, almost exclusively. And I used to listen to Love Lines. And some of the sexual antics that Paris Hilton had gotten herself into years ago, they can actually be explained by having been abused at a young age.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But I don't want to, look, there's a lot of, people in their 20s, and I forget how old she was when she made that sex tape with Rick Solomon, but there's a lot of people in their early 20s that make sex tapes and have sex and do things like that weren't abused. So I'm not sure how much is because she was abused in one of these facilities, and how much was because that's just what people in their early 20s do. But your point's well taken. Maybe that does. Maybe people will look at that in a different light.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'm really surprised that this stuff isn't investigated more, and I really have to give her a lot of credit for bringing this out to the forefront, because I have a granddaughter who actually was institutionalized like this over behavior issues, and now I have to really wonder what ever happened.
Yeah, well, look, I think there actually was legislation that was implemented 3 years ago that basically provided for what they called a Bill of Rights for people that were in a situation like this. But apparently there are still a lot of other abuses that go on within the foster care system, and the states aren't doing a great job keeping track of this. So I think, based on what she's saying and others, Republican and Democratic, there's still a big need for reform. Joaquin, thank you for the call and the comment. 800-848-9222. We're on Twitter as well, at Frank Morano. That's Frank Morano. We are indeed celebrating Matt Blaze's birthday today. I didn't even, I meant to bring in a card too. I had one at home, but didn't get a chance to do it. But maybe we'll do one of those things tomorrow. We'll see. Larry in Brooklyn, our listener of the week. Larry, congratulations for starters on your honor.
I'm so honored. I'm just very much embarrassed, but thank you very much.
Yes, no. Well, well deserved.
I'd like to thank the Academy and myself. Okay. Anyway, about this Paris Hilton,
Larry, also, you didn't send me any bumper music picks for today. How come?
Oh, I didn't realize. I didn't realize I had to.
Okay, well, I emailed you as well, but no big deal. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm very skeptical about these Paris Hilton allegations. First of all, let's remember she is a Hilton, and anybody that received her in their care knows that she's a Hilton, and she's much too emotionally free to have sustained any damage from these experiences. If anything, it was one-time experience that had happened, maybe when she arrived there or a few times. I don't want to cast doubt at her factual allegations, but as far as the damage she sustained, it pales in comparison to what happened to the CIA, to the victims of the CIA experiments on children from the 30s to the 60s. There's two friends of mine that were victims of this, of Loretta Bender, who was a Nazistic child psychiatrist that was given license by the CIA to do all kinds of experiments, first in Bellevue, then in Creedmoor until the late 60s. Two of my friends sustained permanent damage from shock treatments and from insulin deprivation therapy. Okay, one of them can't sleep, and the other one has tics. He also can't sleep. I mean, this is damage. This is real abuse. Paris Hilton, come on, she's a rich girl who was misbehaving, and she continued to misbehave. So how much intervention could there really have been? Well,
first of all, let's say you're right, Larry. Let's say she's making the whole thing up, which I don't agree with. But let's say, just for the purpose of the discussion, that you're correct. Isn't the fact that she is calling attention to the abuses of others in the system, the fact that people who aren't famous, who wouldn't get featured at congressional hearings or played on TV shows or radio shows, isn't there some value to the fact that she's bringing attention to this?
100%, but to exaggerate her own story, I believe, is disingenuous. And that's all. I'll leave it at that. But it just does disservice to the people that I mentioned, who were victims of the CIA, who were uncompensated to this day because the files were destroyed.
Well, I think, look, I don't think it's an either or proposition. I think you can be upset about minors that are mistreated in facilities like this and also be outraged at the CIA conduct in the situation that you mentioned. Larry, I don't want to get into your personal situation too much, but, there was something I saw online that you were involved in some litigation about being involuntarily detained or sent somewhere. Did that happen? Were you ever involuntarily detained anywhere? And did that affect your view of this situation?
Oh, well, the point is my parents ganged up on me, basically. Basically, I'll just say this. If your family all turns against you and wants to have you detained, you will be detained, because the state for some reason it does not uphold the rights of the individual when he's abandoned by all people surrounding him. That's why even if you go into a hospital, I'm deathly afraid of getting arrested because there's nobody to bail me out. The system will suck you in and keep you there if there's nobody to stand up for you. There are people languishing on Rikers Island for years without bail because there's nobody that even knows they're there.
Well, for starters, we're both lucky enough to live in a state where they don't really require bail for most crimes these days. So that's a win for us. Two, if you do need somebody to bail you out, if you do commit a bail eligible offense, you could call me, Larry. I'll be happy to bail you out. Seriously.
Oh, I love you, Frank. Thanks.
All right. Larry, thank you. I
call you for other things too. Yeah.
Well, right. No. Let's not get carried away. We'll stick with bail. Right. You're arrested. You can call me. All
right. That's good enough.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. That goes for any listener of the week, by the way. If you've been a listener of the week and you get arrested and you need someone to post bond, I'll vouch for you. Absolutely. Happy to do that for anybody that supports our show, any listener of the week. No doubt about it. 800-848-9222 if you want to be heard. I am curious, though, with Larry. I would have thought, given his own experiences of his parents having him involuntarily detained, that he would be the first one at the front of the Paris Hilton parade on this. Because essentially the same thing happened to him that happened to her. Now, I understand he thinks she's exaggerating, but even if she is, which I don't believe she is, even if she is, if it leads to reform in the system, isn't that a good thing? I think it is. 800-848-9222. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.
Switching to Shopify helps you sell smarter at every stage of your business. Take full control of your brand with your own custom online store.
Wow, looks amazing.
Find more customers with our easy-to-use marketing tools.
Piece of cake.
And let the best converting checkout on the planet do its thing. Whatever your stage, businesses that grow with Shopify. Switch to Shopify today for a $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen. Shopify.com/listen.
Faztech Industries helps with all your construction, demolition, and weekly waste removal in all 5 boroughs of New York and every corner of New Jersey. Faztech is the #1 provider of recycled products and the #1 provider of roll-off containers. Call Joe Costanzo at 718-494-1600. 718-494-1600.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Now this is music. This is beautiful. Love this. to the chorus. Great.
But when I walk, they talk of suicide. Some people never get beyond their stupid pride. But you can see the real me inside, and I'm satisfied.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
Oh, no. Even though the gods are crazy, even though the stars are blind, if you show me real love, baby, I'll show you mine.
Now, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. If you are not familiar with this song, this was the first song ever released, commercially anyway, by Paris Hilton. It's called Stars Are Blind. And as great as it sounds, the nice thing about this song, it's got a really nice message. If you listen to the message, very, very rewarding. It's very deep, very substantive, very nice. But now, by the way, if you told me that Paris Hilton didn't really sing this song, I could believe that. Because she came out with a couple of other songs, and they didn't sound like this. When I say they didn't sound like this, I don't mean that they didn't have the same beat. I mean, it sounded like a different person was singing. Now, it could be that she was so processed that the voice processing and everything else that it just sounds different, but whatever. She got the credit. Maybe somebody else sang it. Who knows? All right. 800-848-9222. I saw a couple of people calling, but Elias was so enthralled with my commentary that he didn't answer. So you can call back. We're now focused on you. But by the way, I want to give a shout out to the good folks over in South Jersey listening on Talk 1400 WOND. We are getting closer and closer to our annual vacation to Cape May, New Jersey at the end of July. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm very much with summer. I'm very much in a South Jersey mindset. So I'm excited about that. And hello to all of you. Speaking of things going on at the Jersey Shore, they are doubling down on the wind farms. There is, I think, a real issue with how efficient these wind farms are and these offshore windmills are. And Tuesday, there was a press conference in Atlantic City all about Green Acres diversion and state control for wind cables. And I got to tell you, I'm not an expert on this at all. I think, they had a virtual public hearing on what I think is a very bad plan for the Jersey Shore. Atlantic Shores wants permits to install these massive, high voltage industrial electric cables and transformers on dedicated Green Acres parkland through the beach and the boardwalk right in front of the people that hang out in Atlantic City, right next to the Ritz condominiums over there, if you're familiar with it. It also wants to use high voltage cables and run their electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, through residential neighborhoods in Atlantic City. I think this is a big problem. By the way, if you think wind energy is the greatest or the worst, to me, running these electromagnetic fields through residential neighborhoods, this is crazy. And I'm not a lawyer, but in my reading of the state law, I don't think you can do this unless Atlantic City puts other land under state control in what they call the Green Acres diversion. But Atlantic Shore wants the city government in Atlantic City, where multiple people are under arrest right now, to put big chunks of their city-owned land under state Green Acres control. There's no reason for the Atlantic City residents and the taxpayers to put any of this land under Green Acres control. The people of the community, nor anyone at the Jersey Shore, have anything to gain by moving this wind turbine project forward. They have had 5 experimental wind turbines in Atlantic City for the last 17 years. Yet in all those years, nobody has done any peer-reviewed scientific studies to find out if they produce enough useful electricity or if they save enough fossil fuel to pay for themselves. or to justify their killing of a whole bunch of migratory birds. We've seen, you know, well, okay. On a hot summer day, you see them stop completely when you need electricity the most, when people have things like air conditioners running, but there's not enough wind. You've seen them stop during storms when you also need electricity because there was too much wind. We've seen them stop for routine maintenance, which is done quicker on land than it is miles out in the ocean. But you think about it, we really don't have any idea how much fossil fuel was burned to back them up. There are no batteries big enough to store electricity from wind turbines. We have no idea how much electricity from these 5 experimental wind turbines were dumped and wasted when it wasn't needed. And that's because the Atlantic City Utilities Authority does not own the 5 wind turbines that they've had on their property since 2005. Those wind turbines are owned by Jersey Atlantic Wind, private company, and none of the data needed to judge whether they're successful or failures has ever been released to the public or studied by any academic institution or anything else. So building 200 wind turbines in the ocean without studying the 5 that have been on land for the last 17 years, I think it's crazy. Seth Grossman, who's been on this show from Liberty and Prosperity, he said it's like forcing everyone in New Jersey to take a new medicine without doing any clinical trials to see if it works. So I hope that it doesn't come to fruition at all. I mean, I think at least not now in any event. We'll see. All right. By the way, speaking of people that are a little quirky, we have a caller by the name of Gary from Staten Island who calls into this program from time to time. And I have known of Gary for decades.
I don't know.
Because he's a frequent caller to talk radio, might be listening right now. And when I first encountered Gary, he was ubiquitous at every protest. And if there's not a protest going on, Gary will sit in the street with a handmade sign protesting something. Now, when I first encountered Gary 20 years ago or so, he was what I would consider very left-wing. He would protest every right-wing or conservative cause that there was. Very kind of a LaRouche style person, maybe even more left-wing than that. Then when I would hear him on the radio, he would say these things. And, you know, he's not a bad guy. He was a smart guy, certainly.
Hello?
You got the impression that, I'm trying to be polite, hygiene is not a top priority for him. But very intelligent guy. And then when I was working at another radio station, a lot of times he would leave me different newspapers that I wouldn't otherwise read. Then I would read these newspapers and realize why I wasn't reading them. But he's an interesting guy, but he lives to protest. Then he was at Occupy Wall Street. He was doing all sorts of things. He was a big Obama guy, I think. Then when Trump starts running for president, and maybe shortly after he got elected, I'm not sure the timeline, Trump, he becomes a big Trump guy, which has happened with a lot of people. Trump was the first Republican presidential candidate I voted for. So he makes this total change from being very left-wing to being, I don't know if you can call it a change, but an evolution in his politics from being very left-wing to incredibly pro-Donald Trump. And if you type in his name in Google, the first article that comes up is from Politico, April 18th. A Trump supporter compares him to Voltaire. The next article, April 16th, from the Daily Beast, the one dude who showed up for Trump on trial day. Yahoo News, same thing. Washington Times. And it has all of these articles of him being at the Capitol on January 6th, of being in court for Donald Trump. Another article in Politico. Small group of Trump supporters angry outside the courtroom. April 6th, New York Times. New Yorkers at the U.S. Capitol face charges. You know, you get the you get the idea. I don't believe Gary works. At one time, I believe he was a teacher, which is interesting, but I don't believe that he works. When I first started back at this radio network about 3 or 4 years ago, for some reason, I have no idea what I said or did, but for some reason, this is about 4 years ago, he started protesting outside of my house. And I could tell you, when I had just moved into that neighborhood, it was a great thing a great way to introduce myself to my new neighbors, to have a guy holding, again, not looking like the most hygienic fella in the world, holding these handmade signs, leaving them in the street in some cases, accusing me of egging on war with China or whatever I was being accused of, and him shouting in the middle of the day. And
exactly.
People would ask, who is this guy? Why does he have a protester outside of his house? Not protesters, but a protester. So that's Gary. Well, I had a fundraiser for Curtis Sliwa when Curtis ran for mayor. Gary showed up. He didn't have the full cost of the ticket for the fundraiser, so I spotted him a couple of bucks. And, at times Gary can be he's always very smart. At times he can be very nice. At times not so nice. He lives, I believe still, and I got this confirmation yesterday, 2 blocks from where I live. So his lawn is somewhat unkempt, and there will be moments where if other neighbors of his are having their lawn manicured or cut or mowed, he will shout at the people mowing the lawns and threaten to have them deported and all sorts of other things. Another neighbor of mine was walking his dog last week, and he's threatening the dog, right? So that's the thing, is sometimes he can be very nice. Sometimes he can be not so nice. But to me, whenever I've seen him in person, he's okay for the most part. Not always on the radio, but most of the time in person. So yesterday, as I mentioned, we had this meeting here at the station. Very good meeting, very productive, doing some interesting things coming up that you'll get a kick out of. And I get home much later than I normally do. Usually I get home 6:15, 6:30. Yesterday I got home around 7:30, 7:45. And I had to take my wife to the doctor because we share a car. Then I had to take Carmine to school. So I just stayed up. But I'm tired. My wife's talking to me and I'm starting to fade. And she says, why don't you go lie down in the bar room / playroom and take a nap for 15 minutes? So I said, okay, let me lie down. And then my phone buzzes and I look at it and the Ring camera goes off and there's someone on our front porch. And I look at this Ring camera and darn it, it looks a lot like Gary. I shout to my wife who's in the other room. I said, tell me that's not Gary on our front porch. She looks out. It's Gary. It's Gary walking away from our house. So he must have left me something. I go out to the porch. Sure enough, in the mailbox, he leaves me a note. A 4-page handwritten note that it might have been more than 4 pages, but I made it through 4 pages of it. Written in black magic marker that says, page 1, pro-Trump party. Thursday, 8 p.m. Then he gives his address. Biden versus Trump debate night. Free. All welcome, light snacks, Big G, that's what he calls himself, fight for Trump, ! And I can't make out some of the handwriting. And then on one of the other pages, it says pro-Trump party Thursday to be joined by bikers as well as, would you believe, belly dancers. That's what it says. I'll believe it when I see it, and then I might, I don't know what the rest. Then anyway, on another page it says, "Hi Frank, it would be a gas if you, Rachel, and Carmine stopped by, you would steal the show, Superstar. And that's that, right? So he invited me to this debate party at his house. And unfortunately, I have other plans tonight. I am going to be watching the debate, but I can't make this, Gary, if you're listening, or if anybody ends up going to the party. Now, you know me and my love of a scene and a story and of drama. I would love to be at this party. I mean, the belly dancers alone, the bikers, belly dancers, Gary, and this debate. How could I miss that? But I have agreed to be at this fundraiser in New York for Lyrics for Lucas, a terrific organization that we're trying to help raise some money for, who all about basically sudden infant death syndrome. It's actually SUDC. It's a fundraiser for the SUDC Foundation. I posted the information on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Morano fan, or you can go to the website, lyricsforlucas.org. So that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be there and then watch the debate in Manhattan. Otherwise, I would probably stop by Gary's party, and I'm flattered to be invited, Gary, but unfortunately, I can't make it. Then but then my wife says, well, maybe we'll invite him to the barbecue on Saturday. And I said, well, but what if there's somebody getting their lawn mowed next door? Do you want him cursing out and shouting at the people working on the lawn? She says, no, you're right. So we didn't end up inviting him, but he was at least a candidate in being invited, but he did not make the cut. So I can't make it. But Matt, I could probably get you an invite to this event tomorrow. I don't have a way of getting in touch with Gary other than the radio, but
to Gary's party?
Yeah.
I would go to Gary's party, except I will be here.
Oh, okay.
Working on
you have to work.
The debate.
That's it. All right. Well, Elias, what about you? Do you want to go to this?
I have the same excuse.
Okay. All right. Well, so we're all otherwise engaged for Thursday night's debate, unfortunately. So that's that. All right. 800-848-9222. Thank you for the invitation, Gary, but none of us can make it. I asked Rachel if she and Carmine wanted to go on their own, but they indicated that they had other plans as well, unfortunately. Oh, I had to mention this. Speaking of invites, I don't know what it is about me. I'm glad I get invited to all of these parties, but I have to wonder who's expecting me to show up to these, but you never know with me. Sometimes I will show up. I get this email from a PR person that I know, who's actually a friend. We've hung out a little bit, not a close friend, but we've hung out. Lainey is her name. And she sends me the following email yesterday. Hello. If you are receiving this email from me, it means you are cordially invited to the Pride edition of the Lust Files, hosted by porn star Addis Fook, featuring special trans porn superstar guests, the legendary Mia Isabella, the magnificent Morgan Bailey, and starlets Tori Easton and Athena Paris at New York City's Cutting Room this Friday night at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6 p.m. It's going to be a fabulous night to talk and learn about these ladies and their transitions, their sex lives on and off camera, and a chance to meet them, ask questions, and get up close and very personal. Simply RSVP by replying back to this email. The flyer and press release on the event is attached. Now, needless to say, I will be skipping this one. As much as I'd love to attend an event with all of these trans porn stars with the opportunities to ask questions and get up close and very personal, unfortunately, my present position precludes me from doing so.
Sick invite.
Tied up. There we have. But thank you to everybody for all these invitations. Matt Blaze, what about this? I could probably get you an invitation to I'll forward this to you. I'll forward it to you and you see if you want to maybe do a belated birthday party there.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Why not?
There you go. All right. 800-848-9222. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight. Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Tavares. If you ever want to know what kind of music we're playing on the program, today it's all Matt Blaze bumper music selections. Larry, who's our listener of the week, deferred his bumper music selections to another day in honor of Matt Blaze, which is very nice. Hey, I love this story. This is my favorite type of story because I love to picture being the person in this story. A vase purchased at a thrift store for $3.99 turned out to be, I love it, an ancient Mayan artifact. How cool is this? A 2,000-year-old Mayan vase. A vase purchased for less than $4 at a Maryland thrift store. Big shout out to all of our listeners on WCBM in Maryland. Turned out to be a nearly 2,000-year-old Mayan artifact. Anna Lee Dozier said she was shopping at the 2A thrift store in Clinton when her attention was grabbed by an unusual vase. It looked oldish, but I thought maybe 20, 30 years old and some kind of tourist reproduction thing, so I brought it home. Dozier said she was visiting Mexico on a work trip earlier this year when she noticed some items on display at the Museum of Anthropology bore a startling resemblance to the vase that she purchased for $3.99. She spoke with a museum official who recommended she contact the Mexican embassy when she returned home. Dozier shared photos and the dimensions of the vase with the embassy, and the item was identified as a Mayan artifact dating from about the year 200, about somewhere between 200 and 800. Dozier and her family returned the vase to Mexican Ambassador Esteban Barragan in a ceremony held at the Cultural Institute of Mexico. Isn't that awesome? That she returned the vase. I love people like this. She didn't try and sell it. You know, I'll never forget the guy that caught, I think it was Mark McGwire's 70th home run, or it might have just been his record. It might have been his 62nd home run. I don't remember which one, but it was a significant ball. And he just gave it right back to Mark McGwire. Didn't try to sell it or anything like that. The guy that caught Barry Bonds' record-breaking home run, I don't remember if it was his single season record-breaking home run or the career record-breaking home run. He did the same thing. He just gave it to Bonds or donated it to the Hall of Fame. And I view these folks the exact same way. She said, I'm thrilled to have played a part in its repatriation story. I would like it to go back to its rightful place and to where it belongs. But I also want it out of my home because I have three little boys, and I have been petrified. I was petrified that after 2,000 years, I would be the one to wreck it. So I think that is a pretty cool story. Officials said the vase will eventually have a new home at a Mexican museum, which is very nice. You might remember the story I told last year that another thrift store vase was purchased for the same price, $3.99, from a Goodwill store in Virginia. And that's really the key takeaway from the story. If you see an old-looking vase on sale for $3.99, just buy it, because it's probably a priceless artifact or something that's super valuable. Anyway, that vase that was purchased from that Goodwill store in Virginia was auctioned last year for over $107,000, when it was found to be designed by Carlo Scarpa for the famed Italian company Vanini back in 1942. So I pays to shop in these thrift stores, folks. Maybe you'll get a museum piece. Maybe you'll get something worth $107,000. You just never know. You never know. Speaking of, I did want to mention this. Newly discovered ruins in the United Arab Emirates could be the lost city of Tawam, according to archaeologists. Mentioned in ancient Arabic texts, Tawam was believed to have been a major capital in eastern Arabia in the 6th century, famous for pearl fishing and for precious gems, but it fell into decline after the Justinian plague. And you know what happened with the Justinian plague, how it came to an end, Operation Warp Speed. But that Justinian plague devastated the Middle East around AD 540, and archaeologists last month unearthed the remains of homes packed into narrow streets and large jars bearing Aramaic writing. One said it was the largest settlement of its period by far. So that's kind of cool. There are discoveries like crazy, and that is the latest. All right. If you want to give us a call, you can do so. 800-848-9222. That's 800-848-9222. You can also find us on Twitter. Yes, I still call it Twitter. At Frank Morano. That's Frank Morano. And if you ever miss any portion of the show, you can absolutely just listen to the podcast. Go to redapplepodcastnetwork.com. Search The Other Side of Midnight, or if you just want to hear the interviews or highlights or things that don't make it onto the radio, go search Frank Morano interviews and more, because your influence counts. Use it.
Hey, it's Joe Piscopo. When you're looking for concrete materials for your next construction project, call Diamondback Ready Mix on Staten Island. This family-owned and operated business is the go-to supplier for concrete materials in New York, New Jersey, and the surrounding tri-state areas. My friends and experts from Diamondback Ready Mix are experts and fully licensed and insured in New York and in New Jersey to deliver ready-mix concrete to your job site. Give them a call today for more information at 718-650-5649, 718-650-5649.